This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in indoor series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to round number 2 of the Skip Barber World Cup season number 2 here at the Charlotte Roval. My name is Daniel Handover and I will be talking you through all of today's action. Last week we were joined by the organiser of the event, the wonderful Benny Simonson. He is unavailable today, so I will be talking you through and taking you through proceedings on my own for this particular race, but going through the remainder of the season, we will have a commentator alongside, which will be very, very exciting. It means I will have someone to riff off of as we go through the season. Last race, I should say, very, very good race, very, very interesting race. Some really, really good. As we see a skip number 18 there. Who was that? I thought that was Kevin Budgeon, getting a little bit too close and personal with the wall. Yeah, last race at Donington Park. What a fantastic circuit that was, and what a fantastic pairing between the Skip Barber and between the Skip Barber and Donington. It's just such an amazing circuit. It's a very, very fast circuit, especially with the Skip Barber. There's a lot of places where you're pretty much flat out for a good 80% of the lap. Some fantastic racing. Everyone was very fair, very, very clean, and hopefully we're going to see that going forward for round number 2. Charlotte Roval is a very, very different circuit, obviously based in the USA. A couple of different corner complexes here compared to what we've seen at Still. As you can see the track map there, a lot of medium speed corners, the 2 chicanes as well, coming down the last chicane before you get to the start finish line, and also before the final banking as well. That very, very tight chicane. Also some braking opportunities there, or potentially some heavy braking zones, which people may decide that they want to try to make a move. We'll have to see as the race progresses and as we go. We're going to be jumping to qualify in a few moments. We're also going to talk actually a little bit, we're going to talk quickly about the racing format that we're going to be doing today. So the racing format and how the racing format works is we're going to be going through there's several different types of formats that we're going to use throughout the season. And the particular format we're going to use for this would be format number 3. Now, what format number 3 is a 1 hour, it's a 60-minute race. And there are 3 mandatory pit stops. Now, these pit stops can be taken at any point. They don't need to be taken at a certain point. There's no window. They can simply be taken at any point they wish. Now, when you take them, is an interesting prospect because you can take them early. You will have to fill up with fuel at one of the stops as well to try and get to the end. You may be able to drivers may be able to get to the end on one tank, but it will be very, very tricky, and that would most probably have to be quite a significant amount of fuel saving, which realistically, again, in something like this, in the colour, you can fuel save, but you do have to be a little bit. You have to be a little bit careful. And realistically, there is going to be some fuel that's going to be taken with the drivers. There is no question about that. So that raises a question, obviously, with those 3 pit stops, but they can be taken at any point. So newcomers to this season will obviously be. So there will be several different formats that we're going to be running through throughout the season. This is the first time where we've run this particular format. We are going to be running this format a couple of times throughout the season as well. And I think Charlotte Roval is a very, very good track to try to have it for the first outing. Now, I was, again, part of this series when it first kicked off. And it was one of the first series that Absolute Sim Racing broadcasted. It was absolutely fantastic. It was really, really good. And I mentioned that several times at Donny. It was such a good series, and it's great to see it brought back, albeit under a slightly different name. But the principle obviously is still there with the different formats. The cars themselves are just fantastic to watch and fantastic to drive. So, yeah, really, really looking forward to this race. Qualifying is just about, in fact, it is underway already. So we're going to switch over to the qualifying now. So if we go to, then pretty much everyone is out making, going through their out laps now. We've got here, so as Webber, one of the first drivers to be jumping out on circuit. He's going to be one of the first people, I believe, to set a lap on the board. Yes, he is. So depending on when he gets round, but he will be going through and getting a lap on the board relatively quickly. So the number 2C5, you can see warming tyres, trying to get some heat into them. They take a little bit of time to warm up, these tyres do. So realistically, we're going to be looking at probably the second or even third lap being the fastest, providing there are no mishaps throughout those races. You will most probably see that we're going to be going forward, and the third lap will be the fastest. Some quick drivers in this series as well. As we know, there's going to be some close battles here. We certainly know that as well. But it's a long race. You know, those 60 minutes, they will take, while it does go, you know, and it will go down, I wouldn't say relatively quickly, but it's going to feel like 5 minutes for us in the commentary box, because this race and these races can become so intense that you really, really get lost in laps very, very quickly. And as we got now, Chaz Webber going on to his first flying lap. Goes down into turn one. Big sideways moment straight away. But he was talking about this last time out, actually, in a couple of weeks ago, that you want to get the main rotation done at the early part of the corner before the apex, and then you power through the apex. That sliding, though, probably a little bit too much. But again, purple sectors at the moment being set by... We've got a couple of drivers actually setting some purple sectors already. Bear in mind, you know, there's lots of people still to actually get out on circuit and to run their first laps at the moment. Manuel Lucetta has actually just only come out onto the circuit. You can see him there. Manuel Lucetta is certainly not a slow driver by any stretch of the imagination. But the purple sector at the moment has actually just been set by Philip Hammer. As we can see, Philip Hammer there, the number 60. Just goes through, just about gets the car, just about pulls the car back to the circuit. Okay, coming down, you can see that slide happening there. Now, all that will be, this is the, very much a characteristic of what the car is doing. It's very much a characteristic of what the car does. Again, that slide there, you don't want to do it a lot. Obviously, you do want to keep the car in check to a certain degree, but sometimes that little bit of slide mid-corner doesn't actually cost you any time. Nildrian, apologies, on the stream. Little wave there. So, hello, hi there, Nil. Thank you, Neld. Is it Neld? Neldrian. There we go. I'm going to say Neldrian. That'll be it. Yes, welcome to the stream. So I'm going to go down to the final banking. Times have already been set on the board, and we're going to get those up for you now. In fact, here they are. So, current times, you can see times they're flying in thick and fast now. Flying in very, very fast indeed. So Ivan Fabro with that 1:31.467 currently leading the way. What's Philip Hammer going to do for his first flying lap? Philip Hammer goes second, but Loris Amadio straight up there. Down with a 31.3, so almost a tenth faster than Philip Hammer. Very, very quick time straight out of the gates. We're probably going to be looking at, again, you'd imagine that a 1:30 would be possible here. With these particular, again, we'll have to see. It depends how the tyres warm up and how drivers get used to it. You can see straight over there, Philip Hammer on this second lap looking a lot more comfortable, a lot more control within the car. There's still that little bit of a slide you see in the mid-corner, but it's nowhere near as bad. It's nowhere near as aggressive this time. Nick Vaughan Roberts just goes up into P5 with his first lap on the board. So that's his first lap. They're very, very close once again, as we normally see with this series. We saw it last series when it was originally called the Winter Cup, all the way back last year. And we've seen, we saw the same at Donington, and we're definitely going to see the same here, I would imagine. No more purple times being set on the board, though. Interestingly enough, as I've noticed, as I say that, Ivan Fabro's just gone up into, well, he's maintained his P1 with a 131.264. So that has put Ivan Fabro up into pole position currently. There's one. Well, there's a couple of people that we still haven't set lap times there. Kevin Budget, look at that. Kevin Budget with a 31.257. That came out of nowhere. There was no purple sectors. Well, actually, sorry, apologies. There was a couple of purple sectors, but they really, really crept up quick. Philip Hammer, there we go. Philip Hammer goes down, but that's it. The 130.8 is in the bag. Manuel Lucchetta goes through his first lap, and he is now up into third place. Sebastian Scholes comes through. Here we go. These are the times really starting to run down now. This is what we're going to see. May even see, depending on how quick the drivers are really going to try and extract as much time as they possibly can. What we may find is we're going to be... Nick Will Roberts goes up into P7. Does Nick Will Roberts go? Danielle Camareri. What's he going to do? Currently P10 with a 31.502. Again, are we going to see this come down? In fact, no, because Camareri comes into the pits. That will be the end of his race. Couple more. So Manuel Lucchetta set a purple second sector. This could be a very, very fast lap. He has got 4 tenths to find on Philip Hammer, who's currently leading the way, 300s ahead of Sebastian Schulz. If anyone can do it, it is certainly Manuel Lucchetta. Before hugging the inside, as you would normally, the shortest distance possible. Absolutely what you want to do. We also do have, and will have in a few moments, the live timing link that will be set in the YouTube chat. So if you do want to follow on the action and what times people are doing, etc., etc., the live timing will be there. Manuel Lucchetta, look at that. He goes up, and he was originally, that was set, absolutely set on the cards for a pole position, but Adam Miles storms in there with a 130.66, so a tenth and a half quicker than Manuel Lucchetta, which was already a very, very fast lap time. Manuel Lucchetta does have one more lap to go, so he's got to really, really put it out of the bag. Sector 1 is looking fast. Sector 1's looking very fast. Actually, he's matched the first sector with Philip Hammer, and he's a couple of hundreds quicker than Adam Miles for that first sector. But it was the second sector that Adam Miles really, really pulled. The third sector also as well, in all honesty. So, very strong second half of the lap there for Adam Miles, which is really what helped him push up into P1. That was an absolutely fantastic lap. Would have been good to have even ridden on board with that, but unfortunately, again, that time just sort of crept out of nowhere. Dawson Seifert, on a P17. This will be coming on to his last lap also as well. And see what this is, and it comes down to... Does Seifert improve? I don't believe he does. No, he does not. So, last person in qualify, Manuel Lucchetta. No, he's come into the pit. He has come into the pit lane. May have got an off track or something possibly scuppered to that qualifying session, but that is it. And I tell you what, Manuel Lucchetta, he had a couple of purple sectors in there for the final, that final remaining out there. So this could be very close between Adam Miles and Manuel Lucchetta. Let's keep an eye out for those. Again, there may be different strategies on the cards here. We simply don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. Thorsten Seifert, we're actually going to be jump back on board with Thorsten now. And in fact, here he is. Final lap of the final driver in qualifying, the number 189. As he comes down the banking. And the heavy braking zone here, down into that second chicane. Entry is crucial here. The entry then follows in. And the entry sets everything up. Just about takes the curb, bounces over the curb in the second. Then you can just let the car really, really run out. Cut the inside there. And again, hug that inside. The shortest distance possible. Goes a little bit wider. I wonder if this lap is simply going to be just a bit more of additional practice there. A bit of again, just that little bit of an extra banker lap. Just to maybe experiment with a couple of things, try some new things here. But he seems to be into it at the moment. No, he has backed out of that lap, as I thought it didn't. There was no time set in the world right there in terms of sectors. And that is it. Qualifying over. We are going to bring you the full qualifying and the full grid in a few moments' time. And once we do that, we will then get ready for this 60-minute race. And in fact, here is your grid. So Adam Miles, a fantastic qualifying, 10th and a half, almost quicker than Manuel Lucetta in second place. Philip Hammer takes P3 with Sebastian Schultz in P4. Loris Amadio takes 5th with Kevin Budge in P6. Ivan Fabro in 7th. Nick Vaughan Roberts, another strong performance in P8. Roger Hooker takes P9. Ephraim Pizzati, P10. Daniele Camereri in 11th. And then Chaz Webber takes P12. Daniel Forgiolini in 13th. Giuseppe Tellini, 14th. That is Joachim Osbeck in 15th. Joshua Dancy, 16th. Thorsten Seifer, 17th. Nicola Tassato, P18. Gigi Maloney in 19th. Christopher Miles takes 20th. And then Filippino Bernardi takes 21st on the grid. So, when it comes to the start again, very, very important. Unfortunately, what it does mean is half the drivers are going to be starting midway round the final chicane, which is certainly something that you don't want. Certainly something you don't want, and it already puts you a little bit on the back foot, in all honesty, which is a shame, because like I said, it's the last thing that you want is to have and to be put on that back foot. It's certainly going to hamper you, like I said, straight away on that start, because you haven't got the clean run straight the way down, obviously, into turn 1. We can see there that there is Adam Miles. He's just put his way onto the grid now. So a couple of more moments, and then we will be getting underway. In fact, we're just about to get underway in a second. Lights are about to come on. In fact, here we go. Round number 2 is about to get underway, and we are away. Who gets the best jump? Who gets the best start? And I'll tell you what, it's a pretty even start all the way through the field. Adam Miles, Manuel Lachette, and Philip Hammer. So the top 3 still maintain their positions going down into the first complex for the first time. Everyone still goes through. Chaz Webber has dropped a couple of positions straight away down the order. He's dropped, actually, was going side by side briefly for a moment with Daniele Forgiolini. Nick Vaughan Roberts already up a position. He's now up into 7th place. So he's making moves already. He is not hanging about in the slightest. Again, what a livery that is, the old Skips livery. Imagine to go forward as well. You can see the intervals. Again, anything in orange, less than half a second. Anything in yellow is over half a second, and between and under 1 second. Slipstream, as we always have now. This is going to be single file coming down to the first chicane. Are we going to see any braking moves happening here? Outbraking, we may very well do, although people may want to start finding their feet a little bit at the moment. And rather than try and push all that much, they may instead just simply try and maintain a bit of order. We've actually got a move a little bit further down. That was Daniele Forgiolini. That's a big, bold move, but manages to, as that was Giuseppe Tellini that made the move on Forgiolini. That is a move done and dusted. Christopher Miles is up a couple of positions. He is down into... Is that someone with a slowdown? It may... No, it's not a slowdown, actually. It is, that is Joachim Osbeck. He's going through, taking a very, very slight line. A lot of people in the pit lane for some reason. Ah, okay, that'll be why. They've already taken their first positions. Big, big moment. Wow, who was that? That looked to have been... I would imagine that was Chaz Webber, it looked like. That was a big, big moment there, and there's still a couple of another couple of moments happening a little bit further down. So, Nick Vaughan Roberts, Roger Hooker, Joachim Osbeck, Christopher Miles, Nicola Tassato, all taking their first pit stops. Now that is very, very early. I would like to actually put a question to Benny, who Benny is watching. Benny, now and obviously you would be on the grid. What would you be doing in this situation? Be interested to hear your thoughts, because one thing I really want to do is to get the insights of from a perspective of those 3 pit stops, when would you take them? Because I'm always intrigued by this. I know when I would take them, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on where you would take them. We're going to bring up the car numbers as well, because within this there are 3 different classes as well. We have, and apologies for the small issue with regarding to the classes. These will be sorted as well, and we will get these sorted for the next week. But what we're going to have here is the numbers between 1 and 99 are all for the Pro category. You have numbers between 100 and 199 in the Pro-Am category. And then any numbers from 200 to 299 are in the Am category. So again, just give you an understanding of where those times are and where these people are obviously in terms of position-wise. Going forward with next week, we are going to have those actually categorised. It'll be much easier to find them and much easier to actually show you so you can see whereabouts they are. Adam Miles is starting... well, I thought he pulled a gap, but that's certainly not the case. Actually, I thought the gap was a little bit bigger than what it was. But that's certainly not the case. Manuel Lachetta just managing to sit behind, has all of the drivers top 5. This is about all the way pretty much for the lead. This squad, you can argue that this is a 6-way battle for the lead. But I'm wondering if it's simply going to be our driver's going to sit behind. There's a bit of fuel saving going on here, I would imagine. I would like to jump on board. We're going to jump on board with a couple of the drivers in a couple of laps' time, just to understand, again, if they're doing anything slightly different. Are they trying to fuel save as much as they can? It'd be interesting to know. Pizzati's had a moment. Pizzati is just coming down. It's on the exit of turn 4. Possibly. I'm not entirely sure what's happened there. See if we get a replay of that in a few... see if we can get a replay of that in a few moments' time. Sebastian Schulz has just lost a position. It's all kicking off now, so the fuel saving and the single file that I thought was happening is now very much not the case. So that was... Loris Amadio has just passed Sebastian Schulz. Manuel Lachetta has just been passed... was passed by Philip Hammer as well, all down, going down into that second chicane. So gloves are already off, and we're only on lap number 3. And like I said, bear in mind, we've got 60 minutes of this, so I wonder if we're going to see a couple of people coming in. Kevin Budgeon now comes into the pit lane for his first pit stop. And we're going to see, probably in the next couple of laps or so, we may see a few more responses now to pits, to pit stops and pit strategies. Not entirely sure. Again, we'll have to see how this develops. But this is still very much a 5-way battle for the lead. And I said, really starting to put the hammer down. Philip Hammer has set fastest lap. So he's got a 1:31.07. So we're not seeing the qualifying times just yet. But as the fuel starts to burn off, we are most probably going to see faster lap times being produced, or possibly faster lap times being produced than what was seen in qualifying. We'll have to wait and see how that does develop. But I have a feeling these tyres are very, very hard wear, and there's no tyre change needed for these guys, and they won't be needing tyre changes. They can very much do so if they wish, but it is not a necessity. And if anything, it can actually sometimes be a bit of a hindrance. It takes so long to get the tyres back up to some form of temperature. No movements yet, so again, this is where, again, I imagine the single file will be kept here for a little bit longer. And now they've maybe decided that they want to do a bit more fuel saving, perhaps. Again, difficult to say at this moment, in all honesty. We have to see, and in fact, there we go. So on the left, top left of your screen now, you can see there is the time as we have both the number of laps completed and also the time remaining. So we're nearly down into the 10 minutes, having had 10 minutes gone. About 50 minutes remaining here. Gap between Sebastian Schulz and Ivan Fabro has opened up quite considerably, actually. It's getting on for 2.5 seconds. In fact, it's actually just ticked over the 2.5 seconds mark. There is Ivan Fabro there. Just biding his time at the moment. It's unfortunate because he's not actually going to be... He hasn't got a toe. He's not going to be catching up in any way at this moment. Unless he can just pull that time back. The problem is, what you've got here is these top 5 drivers... They will all be pushing and pulling each other along. So they've got a very, very handy opportunity here. So that gap's 2.6 seconds now. So the drivers can still maintain. Although, saying that, we have had, again, a couple of drivers having pitted early. So this will also all even out. Bear in mind, from Nick Vaughan Roberts down, everyone has pitted once. Christian Miles has pitted twice. And you see, that was a move potentially inside. I think it was. That was Loris Armadio still trying to pass Philip Hammer. He manages to get the job done. So another good move from Loris Armadio there. He's now up into second place. That has extended the gaps a little bit, but these will come down. In fact, the gap, half a second up to Adam Miles. And again, with the pace that Miles had, I feel like a small little breakaway will really push. A small breakaway will be a very, very I wouldn't, again, I'm not going to necessarily say an easy thing to go, but the gap is opening up. It's now 0.6 of a second. Once you get out of the tone window, it can be tricky to get back into it. Again, it depends how the race does evolve, how the race goes forward. We're going into the unknown a little bit here, actually, again, because lots of things have changed since we've come forward from the last season. We've got, a completely new remodel of the car itself. Gaps come down again, back to half a second or so. Again, the person that's going to be losing out on a draft obviously is Adam Miles because he is leading out the front. He hasn't got anyone to pull him along, whereas the next 4 or 5 drivers, down to Sebastian Schultz, all have drivers, all have cars in front of them to pull them along. Let's have a look at what has happened to Pizzati. So it's on the exit of 4 going into 5. Just a bit too much speed on the entry, perhaps. I, again, just think a bit over-rotated a little bit. Bumps the wall. Does the right thing, actually, and stays there. It's the best thing you can do. So he does absolutely the right thing. Waits for there to be a sensible-sized gap. And then away he goes. Now, interestingly enough, that didn't... Well, I can't imagine there was any damage in that, in all honesty. I really don't think there was. So that was a move, actually, I think Roger Hooker just passed Nick Vaughan Roberts. And I feel that was the case. And I wondered, because Nick Vaughan Roberts has apparently had a bit of an off. In fact, here we go. Is it a little bit too wide? It's just a tad too wide, but it manages to keep it going. So there was no spin or anything from Nick Vaughan Roberts there. But he just goes in a little bit too hot, going to... Oh, there's a bit of a moment there, actually, though. Again, manages to keep it all in check. So let's see if we can just go forward again a little bit further and see where that overtake happened. Now, so this is coming in. So Nick Vaughan Roberts is sitting home. He must have lost out. He tried to get the move on Kevin Budgeon. Does he go into a little bit too hot? He does. Goes in a little bit too hot and costs himself 2 positions. Nearly hits the wall. Has to take avoiding action and then get back into the brakes. That's cost him a mountain of time. A second or so that's cost him. So the position that Nick Vaughan Roberts tried to get, the number 11 Tool Falls racing car, now has to go forward. He has to go 1 step forward, 2 steps back. He just about manages to get the position on Kevin Budgeon and then has to, unfortunately, again, for fear of missing or fear of hitting the wall, backs out of it, has to get on the brakes and then loses 2 positions. Well, that's certainly not the way that you want to go. Loris, you can see on the left-hand side, top left of your screen, have a look at that. Loris Armadio not only is caught back up in the space of 2 laps to Adam Miles, but he's passed Adam Miles as well. And this is the replay happening here, going in down into the final, the second chicane. The first chicane even, apologies. Needed no second invitation, did he? There he goes, the Way of Italy Racing, number 37. Sails away. Now this could be, with the pace that Armani has got some very, very good race pace at this moment. And I would almost feel now, having looked at the battle that's going on, and having looked at what's going on between, essentially, the battle for the lead, which is still the top 5 cars, as one goes in, you may find they all follow. It's going to be tricky because they are very, very close, and we may have we have a couple of drivers that decide they don't want to and try and get the jump, and try and get the overcut. But I have a feeling that we'll see all the drivers just sort of come into the bits one after another and all just follow each other in. Tow means quite a substantial amount here. But again, I could very well be wrong. We'll have to find out. Best lap time has just been set by Nick Vaughan Roberts. Nick Vaughan Roberts has just done a 29.86. That would put him about 3rd on the grid, if my memory serves me correctly. So Nick Vaughan Roberts motoring along here. He is trying to... he's not only going to get past his teammate Roger Hooker, but he's now got to try and get back past Kevin Budgeon. He is catching up. He's right on the tail of his teammate here. Is there going to be some team orders, or is there going to be simply battling? Or Nick Vaughan Roberts goes to the outside, drops back down. Try and get a little bit of the overrun, possibly going down into the final chicane. Last couple of corners. Is there going to be a move? No, there's not. Not this particular lap. Anyway, Ivan Fabry, you can just see in the background there, coming into the pit lane. Another lap that Nick Vaughan Roberts has to wait to try and get back. Again, there's a fair way to go yet. Let's not count anything out yet. A lot of things can happen in the next 45 minutes or so. of which so those 45 minutes have gone, and those 45 minutes have gone very, very quickly indeed. Sorry, those 13 minutes have gone very, very quickly indeed, with 45 minutes remaining left. Well, Roberts is looking very, very fast at this moment. He's looking very fast. He's got a long way to go. Well, if anything, what he's done is unfortunately, he's definitely hurt himself with the time loss. So yes, while he has done a pit stop early, the drivers at the front, so Armadio down to Scholl, seem to have had a cleaner race generally, especially with this first half. So there we go. There's Roger Huggy. Pulls to the outside, and allowing Paul Roberts to go up the inside. It's going to push that. There we go. So it was a nice, straightforward, clean move there. Now the next one on the cards is Kevin Budger once again. So this is a bit of deja vu here. I wonder if Vaughan Roberts is going to wait now to possibly the same place and try and get the move done without... I mean, did very, very well to avoid the wall there. It's so easy to go into the wall. And it's so easy to lose your front wing, and by that time you can lose. I believe Benny was saying actually. Benny was saying that you can lose up to, I think it was up to 0.8 of a second a lap, depending on the circuit, which is an extortionate amount of time. And the last thing you want to do is to lose that sort of time on the, in a car like this, where lap time. It's all very, very close. So even 2-3 tenths per second is a win or lose scenario, let alone 6 to 8 tenths. Absolutely massive amount. Roberts again is looking fast. In all honesty, with the way that things are going, there's definitely going to be, once everyone's done their first lap, have a look, because I think my initial interpretation that Vaughan Roberts has dropped a fair bit of time compared to the top 5 that haven't pitted. I don't necessarily think that may be the case. I think it'll be I may be deceiving myself here. Actually, it'll be interesting to see when the driver's up ahead. So Amadio's probably controlling the pit stop at this point. Whether he goes right to as far as he can simply go before the tank runs dry, don't know. We'll have to see. But he's gonna have to probably consider pitting potentially soon. In fact, there we go. Loris Armadio does go into the pits as if by magic. As I say that, Armadio now does come down into the pit lane. This has released Adam Miles. It's released, in fact, the top, now the top 4 even, I should say. So Armadio's into the pits. If Armadio gets out into clean air, that will help him massively, because he will be able to just simply crack on. Chaz Webber comes into the pits as well. No movement yet either from Nick Ross. We've sat on this battle. We're going to quickly just go up the field to... In fact, Loris Armadio has just come out just behind Thorsten Seifert. Now, this, while it might not be too much of an issue for Thorsten at this moment, it might be a little bit tricky. Depends how quickly he can get by. And in fact, I think there's going to be a move straight away. Armadio not hanging about whatsoever. He goes back up now into P8. Is there going to be a response now from any of the top 4 currently? They're coming down now into the first chicane. It depends. If there's going to be a response, then are them coming into the pit lane. Nick Roberts has just, so you can see on the timing tower, has just got past Kevin Budgen. Depends. Are any of the top 4 coming into the pits? Have they responded? Do they want to? No, they do not. So they're all working together at this point to perhaps try and pull a gap to Armadio if he can. At the moment, these guys, again, they're all going to push each other along. Unfortunately, Armadio does not have that luxury anymore. A bit further down the field, let's have a look at that move that Nick Vaughan Roberts made on Kevin Budgen. And here it was, so perhaps a slightly slower exit there for Budgen, and that really just allowed Vaughan Roberts to just make the move. There was no defensive there at all, really, in all honesty. I probably don't think there was there was any grounds to be able to do so. Kevin Budgen just did really what the best he could, which is just allow the move to happen, pull straight back into the slipstream so that you don't allow Roger Hooker to make the move back as well and lose 2 positions in the space of 2 corners. And currently Budgen is still splitting the 2 Falls Racing drivers, so that plan seems to be working for him at this stage of the race. one of the other battles that we've got at the moment, that is a dive from Philip Hammer. Wow, that was a dive, but he manages to keep it in check. Manages to go through. So does this mean that we are going to see Philip Hammer coming into the pit lane? An overtake there maybe, or potentially would suggest so. So the first pit stop, possibly of Hammer. Is this going to be the case? And no, it is not. Simply track position was just more preferred. Manuel Lucchetta saw there another very, very clean move. So Adam Miles has gone from first all the way down to P3 in the space of 2 or 3 corners. I don't think he's going to be overly fussed though, as long as these 4 can sit within a pack. I don't really think they're going to be all that worried. Lawson Sofair now hops into the pit lane. So he's now in P11. Obviously, we'll drop down a little bit further down the order once that pit stop has been completed. And then once we've got the first drivers, once we've got the first pit stops completed for everyone, we'll have an understanding of where people are on circuit. Obviously, like I mentioned, a couple of people have already made 2 of their pit stops. And those drivers are... So Ivan Fabro has made second pit stop. In fact, we will see if we can bring it out onto the timing tower for you. And in fact, I believe we are going to be able to. We'll bring that up to you in a few moments' time. It's interesting to see, again, who has pitted twice and who hasn't pitted twice. In fact, there we go. Apologies, that's the slightly the wrong information, but we'll get you the correct information in a few moments. And in fact, here it comes up now. So you can just see there as well. So currently Philip Hammer, Lucchetta, Miles, Scholz, Camerari, and Dancy. Not all of those drivers. So none of those drivers has made a stop as it stands at the moment. And especially with this top 4, they're all going to be pulling each other along. Last lap times. So last lap time as they come across the line. So interesting, we have a 130.4. So anywhere between a 130.3 and a 130.4 for the top 4. We then have the person we do want to keep an eye out for is Loris Armadio. Now, Loris Armadio, as we know, has made his first pit stop. You can see it there as well on the left-hand side. His last lap was a 130.2. So Loris Armadio, this early pit stop may be paying off for him because he's able to... He actually would have brought that time down somewhat compared to his main rivals currently up ahead. Interesting stuff indeed. So that 130.2, let's have a look at that and let's keep an eye out. Loris Armadio has actually just got past Joshua Dancy, who hasn't made his first pit stop yet. So we'll see if we can get a replay of that. So anyway, so Fabro, Forgiolini, Pizzati, Bernardi, and Miles. Christian Miles has made all of his 3 pit stops. That's it, done. Christian Miles has come into the pits, made all his pit stops nice and early. Within the first 13 laps, he's made all of his 3 pit stops. And now he will simply be going to the end of these final 40 minutes. That could play dividends. We'll have to see. Is Lucchetta going to try and make a move on the Hammer potentially? He might very well do. He will have the run. It depends if he can get... Depends if that run comes down. So, might have to wait a couple of laps to try and wait for the correct moment. It's nothing yet. Again, last lap times 4. So Hammer 130.6. Lucchetta 130.7. Miles 130.7. And then Scholz 130.8. More importantly. Actually, more importantly, we've got a couple of drivers. So Joshua Dancy has... Loris Armadio 130.5. So again, quicker than the top 4 currently. Nick Vaughan Roberts, though, 130 dead. So Nick is absolutely storming in terms of pace. Kevin Budgeon's also done a 30.2. So it may not actually make that much difference depending on when it's pitted. It's simply how much pace you have in the car regardless of where the pit stop happens. Very, very interesting. Let's have a quick look actually at the Loris Armadio pass on Joshua Dancy. In fact, here is a very wide line there for... that was, I think Joshua... Whether he's got sand or simply just backing off a little bit, he may very well have been. So I'm not too sure. Gigi Maloney has had a crash. Another replay will be coming up in a few moments to show you that. Not entirely sure what that could have been. The replay will be able to tell us all the information that we want to know. Roger Hookus, what's that? P9? So the battles again to watch out. Adam Miles comes into the pit. So Miles has decided He doesn't want to be part of this any longer. Maybe he's seen the times that Armadio is doing and may actually think that some clean air may benefit him at some point. Again, are we going to see a possible response to any of the top three now? We will have to see in the next couple of laps. Let's see what happened to Gigi Maloney. What's going to happen is possibly a bit of a tag there, actually. Oh, so no tag. Very, very wide now, though. Charlotte Roval going through that double left-hander onto the banking. That is a notorious corner. Notorious corner for running a bit too wide. If you run a tiny bit too wide, it very quickly becomes game over. I've done that more times than I would care to mention. And unfortunately, I know the pain that Maloney will be going through there, because that's such an unfortunate place to do it. And it is the worst place to do it there, because you are actually going into that second of the two left. You're going in there with some fair old pace. It's not it initially looks actually like you think you've got to carry, a little bit of a slower speed to then try and get the exit. You can carry quite a lot of speed into it, but if it goes wrong big time, and that is unfortunately what we saw there. So that is done. That is done and dusted. Nick Vaughan Roberts has passed Roger Hooker. So again, another wide berth. Okay, interesting. So Nick Vaughan Roberts passing Joshua Dante. So again, Joshua Dante just giving that nice wide berth. It's both of the two Falls Racing drivers. And they make them on their way. Sebastian Scholes, 1.3 seconds now off the back of these two. So he's dropped off. See a possible mistake somewhere across the lap. But that's dropped him down. Yes, 1.3 seconds is now the gap. So once again, I wonder if Hammer and Leicester, they're working together at this point, just pulling each other along perhaps. Not entirely sure. Slightly tighter line there from Leicester, you saw. Both coming very, very wide. And you can see the speed at which they're carrying through that corner. Like I said, you can really get the car turning nice and early. You've got to be careful of the inside barrier. But once you've done that, open the wheel and just let that car flow through, trying to keep up again as much momentum as you can. Leicester to Schultz now the gap, 1.4. So it's actually 1.5 now. So while Schultz does have that pace, again, that draft is really helping both Hammer and Leicester, because they're both pulling away at this point. That's all they're doing. They're simply just driving really what they would normally do, but the slipstream is helping both of them. It's pushing Hammer along and it's pulling Leicester with him. Still no changes yet in terms of additional pit stops. Nick Vaughan Roberts, again, another overtakes. Certainly not hanging about, is he? He's actually done the fastest lap of the race with a 29.49. I'm sure a bit of slipstream would have been aiding in that, because his purple sector was in sector 4 and it was purple by a considerable margin. To put it into context, it was a 32.8, so about 3/10 quicker than anyone in that move. And we saw the move there from Nick Vaughan Roberts. So certainly not hanging about. The next person in his sights is Loris Armadio. Remember, Nick Vaughan Roberts is in the pro category here. And that pro category, as you can see there, is currently Philip Hammer, Manuel Lachetta, Sebastian Schultz, and then Loris Armadio. Can you see Daniel Camerari at P4? He hasn't made a pit stop yet, bear in mind. He's 14 seconds down on Sebastian Schultz. But he is the current lead car in the Pro-Am category, which has got a couple of gaps, certainly to Joshua Dancy, who's all the way in P9 overall. So P2 in class, P9 overall for Joshua Dancy. Loris Armadio has actually just made a move, I believe, on Daniel Camerari, and yes, he has. Kevin Budge has also moved back on to Nick Vaughan Roberts. What has happened there? Dancy actually he went off the track for a brief moment, so let's see what happened there. Manages to keep it going though, but fair play. That could have ended very, very badly. But he manages to keep it going though. That is the main thing. So Armadio now goes back into 4th place overall. He's 14 seconds down on Sebastian Schultz. Depends how quickly Armadio can catch back up. Because again, Schultz, Lucetta and Hammer, none of the drivers from that top 3 that you can see on your screen, none of them have pitted as of yet. And it's obviously coming down to halfway. We may see the pit stop actually happen dead on the halfway, and all those pit stops coming through. I can understand why this is happening. They're trying to extend that gap as much as they can before they get the pit stops in. That way, that providing they do have the pace, they're then able to simply just jump into the pits, and then away they go. They don't have to worry necessarily about having to then rebattle for any positions. A couple of overtakes happening here, one of which is Kevin Budgeon. So, Budgeon comes up the inside. I wonder there was a bit of a slow, maybe a slow exit there for Vaughan Roberts. That's why he pulls to the outside, doesn't really hold up or try to defend from Kevin Budgeon. And again, with that overspeed, there's really no point. Kevin Budgeon does the... Vaughan Roberts does the right thing and simply let that position go. You can always try and get that position back once again. In fact, that gap is 0.2 of a second, so it's certainly not. It's coming down to the fair rate of knots. And this was Ivan Fabro passing Thorsten Seifert again, going into that first chicane. Keeps it all nicely in check. Very, very good move there. Very, very clean. Very precise move as well. That was. I like that move. That was good. And then there we go. Nick Vaughan Roberts straight back around the outside, which I think this is a very good taps the ball ever so slightly though. Just brushes it, manages to keep it going. Interestingly enough, and I think this is a very good example of good racecraft there, because Nick Vaughan Roberts, while the overspeed was absolutely massive there for Kevin Budgeon, Vaughan Roberts could have defended, could have really tried to defend that with all of his driving skill and tried to make the move back too soon, tried to make the move back straight away. But instead, no, Vaughan Roberts then, he held back, was patient, waited for the opportunity to come back, and then reach the position. Very, very good racecraft here. Admittedly, this is a slightly longer race, so you do have that to take into consideration. Obviously, you've got a bit more time to be able to decide on those moves and then make those moves stick. But in all honesty, it does, very, very good example of very, very good racecraft there. We are now, you can just see in the top left of your screen, halfway through round number 2 of the Skip Barber World Cup here at Charlotte Roval. So 30 minutes have gone, 30 minutes remaining. We've certainly seen some action within these 30 minutes, and it's going to kick right off towards the end. Once everyone's done their 3 stops, of which we've now had 2 drivers that have done all of their 3 stops, one of which was Gigi Maloney, unfortunately, who had that big shunt, but is back out on circuit. So that's one, and the other one, Chris Miles, the number 187. Chris Miles has done all of his 3 pit stops, so he will simply be running to the end. Giuseppe Tellini goes forward and goes into the pits for his 2nd pit stop. In fact, there he is. It was straight in the pits. Then off he goes again. That's someone else in the pits. That's Chaz Webber coming down in for his 2nd pit stop also. So 2nd pit stop just over the tick of the hour done. Still no pit stops from Hammer, Lucetta or Scholz. I am so surprised. I thought there would be there must have been a pit stop. I thought at least just after the halfway, but all 3 drivers are still going. And I really don't know, actually, in all honesty, when they're going to come in. And in fact, actually, as I say that, is that Philip Hammer coming into the pits? Yes, it is. So Philip Hammer comes into the pit lane. So, no, Sebastian Schulz does not. So, in this top 3 currently, Philip Hammer is the person that comes into the pit lane first. And now, is there going to be any response from the other 2, from Lucetta or Scholz? More importantly, where does Loris Armadio come into this? Loris Armadio has passed Philip Hammer. Where is Philip? He's way down the order. Way down the order. Hammer, he's staying there a little bit longer. Potentially as well he may have taken some additional fuel on board. So, again, drivers will not be able to go to the end. It's very, very unlikely they'll be going right to the very end of with the fuel that they started with. So that is also something to consider. Philip Hammer was actually stationary for about 11 seconds, so I would imagine that was taking on a little bit of fuel. Loris Armadio's last lap his first pit stop was not. It was only 1.5 seconds in the pit lane. 11 compared to 11.6 seconds for Philip Hammer. Adam Miles has only just come out ahead. Well, Philip Hammer has just come up behind Adam Miles, of which you can just see going out of shot there. There is Adam Miles. So, no real time gained or lost there for Philip Hammer, and no time gained or lost there really for Adam Miles. Kevin Budgeon, meanwhile, has decided to go back round the outside of Kevin Budgeon. So that move, once again, the battle continuing to go forward. Manuel Lucchetta now comes into the pit lane as well. So there was the response from Philip Hammer coming into the pit lane. Are we going to see Nick Vaughan Roberts come back? Not at the moment. Bear in mind, both of these drivers have made one pit stop. They've still got 2 more to go. As the action is starting to get there now again. Once people are starting to settle in with their driving, their particular strategies, it's all starting to come together again. It'll open up. It gradually opens, then it all does come back through. Manuel Lucchetta comes back out in P7, so he is ahead of Philip Hammer. Very much is ahead. Adam Miles comes in for his second pit stop already, so he's not hanging about with trying to get these pit stops done and dusted. So he comes back out. It's still in P10 after having made 2 pit stops. He's still in P10. Maybe he's got into rhythm now. He wants to just get these... you may see another pit stop happening relatively soon then. We'll have to see. But Manuel Lucchetta does come out ahead by a good 2.5 seconds there on Philip Hammer. And that would certainly make sense. 9.3 seconds was the time that Manuel Lucchetta was stationary, compared to 11.6 for Philip Hammer. And now over the course of the entire pit stop itself, from pit lane to pit exit, Lucchetta was a 37.65. Philip Hammer was a 40.6. So that would equate to the 3 seconds, of which you can see 3 seconds very much is there. Loris Armadio comes into the pit lane for his second pit stop. He will now drop back down the order. Depends where he comes out, we will have to see. Again, the battle that's still going ahead, this is the only battle we've currently got on circuit. This is not the only battle that we have, period. We are going to have a lot of those, and we do have a lot of those. And it's just the pit stops that are all out of sync for everyone. Everyone is pitting at different times. Everyone's taking fuel at different times as well if they need it. They're taking maybe potentially even different amounts of fuel. You know, this could mean several different things. So come the end of the race, or near the end of the race, those final few laps when everyone's made their pit stops, oh my, is it going to kick off. It absolutely is going to go ballistic, and I'm very, very excited to be able to witness that. 25 minutes are remaining here. As we go down onto the banking for the 24th time here. Kevin Budgeon, is he going to make a move back on Nick Vaughan Roberts? Nick Vaughan Roberts goes to the outside. He'll tuck straight back in the slipstream when he's able to. And in fact, there it is. Roger Hooker just sitting on rear flanker there and just watching the battle. He's got front row tickets to the battle between Vaughan Roberts and Kevin Budgeon here. But Kevin Budgeon now goes back up into second place. Again, that is not necessarily a net second. That is simply track position-wise because both Budgeon and Vaughan Roberts have only made 1 pit stop apiece. And there we go. Nick Vaughan Roberts takes the position back once again. So leapfrogging quite a lot here. This may be helping them a little bit. They may be pulling themselves along and helping each other try and speed up just that little bit, get that extra tiny bit of speed. That it could be the case, might not be. Again, not entirely sure. But again, this is the only battle we have currently on track. And as people start making their final pit stops, we've had a few more drivers now that have made 3 pit stops. That is Filippo Bernardi. We've also got Daniela Forgerini and Christopher Miles. So we've also got... No, apology, I thought Chaz Webber also had 3 stops, but that is not the case. Yeah, so Gigi Maloney, Bernardi, Pizzati has also made 3 pit stops. Forgerini and then Miles. A couple of drivers, obviously, being Pizzati and Maloney, have both had incidents. So that would equate to certainly 1 of the pit stops. And what hasn't helped is the fact that they would have had a tow as well. There we go. Kevin Budgeon goes back round. This is just this is going to be deja vu, I hear. Or I feel for maybe at least a few more laps. Although Budgeon has got a bit more of a run there. The gap was 0.3 of a second at the last timing point. It will drop, obviously. It'll probably drop down to about 0.2 when they come across the start-finish line. Maybe even 1.5. A little bit wide there for Budgeon. That would cost him on the entry, but gain him on the exit. 2.9 seconds as they cross the line. You know, a much wider line from Kevin Budgeon there, interestingly enough. He's able to carry... He's still carrying some good corner speed, but just looks to be a little bit wider. Very, very early turning generally from Nick Vaughan Roberts. A little bit of a one-wheel pill there, slide for Budgeon. Again, tyres-wise, probably won't be affecting the tyres too much. They're really, really hard compound. I wouldn't think there's too much tyre wear going on the drivers again. I'm going to have to worry about that. Another battle that is starting to develop ever so slightly. If you see about 3/4 of the way down the timing tower, Chaz Webber versus Joshua Dancy. This gap is 0.7 of a second between the pair of them. We're going to sit on board. Well, we're going to sit with these guys for a couple of laps and see how those times actually come down. In fact, I think Chaz Webber, Chaz Webber, a small mistake there for Chaz Webber, and that's dropped him down to 1.1 seconds. We'll see if that battle, or we'll see if that time drops down again. So it's 1.1 at the last time in tower point. What's it going to be in the next moment? Where is it going to be? So 1.1, remember, is in that gap. See if that comes up or down. It's come down 1/10. Just under 1/10. So I feel this is a battle that we will need to keep an eye out for. And then possibly coming in. Also, actually, as well, I say that both of these drivers, Joshua Dancy and Chaz Webber, have only made 2 pit stops apiece. So this very much is a net battle going on here. So it's not as if Chaz Webber has done 3 and Joshua Dancy has done 2. They are in both different classes, of course, with Chaz Webber being in the AM category and Joshua Dancy being in the Pro-Am category. But it's a battle on track nevertheless. A little bit further up the field, Sebastian Schulz is playing the long game here, isn't he? Because everyone has made a pit stop. The only person that hasn't made a pit stop is Sebastian Schulz. There he is, all in no man's land with a gap of 16 seconds to Nick Vaughan Roberts. Now, what that does mean is Nick Vaughan Roberts, at this moment in time, again, still battling with Kevin Budgeon and still swapping places. This will mean that after all the pit stops have been completed, that would mean that as it stands at the moment, obviously, you know, having taken into account that Loris Amadio, Adam Miles, Fabro, Tellini, they've all made 2 pit stops compared to Nick Vaughan Roberts 1. When Schulz comes into the pit lane, if he pits in before Nick Vaughan Roberts will inherit the lead. That gap is 16 seconds. There's an average loss of about 30 seconds between. There's an average loss of about 30 seconds between a pit stop, or anywhere between 30 seconds and 30, anywhere between 30 and 40 seconds, depending on how much fuel you actually take on board. But Schulz is going to have to consider pitting soon, because remember, he's got 3 pit stops to do. He's got less than 20 minutes to do it now. So the window of which you now are able to decide on your pit strategy becomes increasingly smaller every lap you go by. You know, if you make your pit stops, you decide that you've got the best part of an hour to do 3 pit stops. Again, every lap you've got less and less time to make that decision. And before you know it, you may actually be in a slightly awkward position where you have to make pit stops, but it's not really an opportune time for you. So that is also, it's always something to consider when you have to, you know, in this particular format. Yes, trying to go as long as you can does have its benefits, but at the same time, if you're in a position where that's, again, your options become increasingly small, you may actually have to pit in an inopportune time where it doesn't quite work for you. So something to consider. Apologies for the issues we're having with our with Sebastian Schulz. They're having a bit of a blinking session. Manuel Lucetta comes in for his second pit stop. So 2 out of 3. That actually releases Daniel Cabareri. So he now gets bumped up into 5th place. Daniel Cabareri, probably the only other person, the only other driver that has not made a pit stop as of yet. So Sebastian Schulz, Daniel Cabareri, the 2 drivers that have not made a pit stop as of yet. When they'll make a pit stop, that is the question. In fact, there is your confirmation there. You'll see a few more drivers have certainly made their 3 steps. Bernardi's unfortunately had to go 1 over. So he's now into 4 pit stops. The Pizzati, Forgerini, Miles, Tellini, still all their 3. So no other driver actually has made 3 stops as of yet. But again, we'll see that will start changing relatively quickly now. Simply just due to the due to the fact we've only got about 15 minutes remaining here. I told you this race would certainly go quick. It's certainly gone quick for me in the commentary box here. I'm hoping it's gone quick for you as well down in the... to everyone that is watching. And to everyone that is still watching, thank you very, very much. It's been very much appreciated to be able to sit there and to commentate again on what has been a fantastic race. And we've still got 15 minutes left of this race, and it's already going to kick off now. You think 15 minutes? That's got about 9 laps remaining here. Now, 9 laps to do 3 pit stops. You've only got a third of the laps left to then do those pit stops. So, again, we're going to see a mad rush of everyone coming into the pits, of which Daniel Camareri now jumps into the pits for the first pit stop. Are we going to see? No, Sebastian Sills again keeps continuing on. Kevin Budging goes forward down into his second pit stop. There is Loris Armadio, the driver that we've really got to keep an eye out for the win here. At the moment, he's just motoring along, just absolutely smashing in those lap times at an insanely consistent rate. And that's really, really helping the situation for him, especially coming forward down into these final, again, the final laps or so, 50 minutes remaining. It's about 9 laps left to go here. So everyone that's still going to have to pick, it's the consistency is relentless here for Loris Armadio. Bear in mind, he's a fair ways ahead of Lucetta, about 5 seconds ahead of Lucetta. Now, depending on how much fuel he's going to have to take, which may be very well less, the fact that he's gone so long, he won't have to potentially he won't have to be sitting on the pit stop as long. If he saved a bit of fuel as well, that will also be helping him. Again, I've seen when he comes in for his for the second pit. So we're going to change back to intervals now, and there we go. So yeah, you can see that gap, 4.8 seconds between Armadio and Lucetta. Roger Hooker comes into the pit lane for the second pit stop of the number 9's race, and the teammate, the sister car to Nick Vaughan Roberts. Yeah, no pit stop still yet for Loris Armadio. No second pit stop. Third pit stop even for Loris Armadio. So what this does mean is, Sebastian Schulz, bear in mind, he's got 3 stops left to make. So, the net lead, once you take pit stops into account, is Loris Armadio, and it is Loris Armadio, potentially at this moment in time, about 4.8 seconds, 4.9 seconds. Sebastian Schulz is pulling a little bit. He's maintaining the gap between himself and Vaughan Roberts. But once again, the pit strategy to take into consideration. Once you have Schulz having done the 3 stops, that will most probably drop him down to potentially maybe 6th or 7th. Maybe a little bit higher than that, possibly P5, P6 again. We'll have to see. Danielle, so Camareri comes in for the second pit stop. That is Giuseppe Tellini. He's done his 3rd pit stop. Roger Hooker's come in for the second pit stop as well. So this is where the pit stops are starting to come in thick and fast now. We're all seeing them come in relatively sharpish, because again, the time is ticking down. You've got an average lap of 1 minute 30. You've only got 30 minutes left. Again, you can see these certainly the laps are starting to run out for these drivers that haven't made a stop. Again, one of which is Sebastian. I reckon Sebastian Schulz is going to do 3 pit stops on the final 3 laps. If he can get away with that, fair enough. It's certainly an interesting strategy. We'll see if it works. We'll see if it pays off. Because I'd be interested to know if that's what he is doing. It'll be a very, very bold move, if so, in terms of strategy. Ivan Fabro comes in. Is this going to be for the third and final pit stop? So when is the in and then when is the out? So you'll see what will happen. Drive up to stop box. There will be the stop for a very, very brief moment, maybe for a couple of seconds, and then he'll be on his way. So in fact, there is the stop. There'll be a tiny, tiny pause, and then off he goes again, or should be on his way again. He may be taking a little bit of fuel. He's actually taking quite a lot of fuel, I think. So maybe that's going to take 13 seconds was the stop there. So that wasn't the best example of a pit stop that I was going to be expecting to be simply an in and out job. We do have confirmation though, as you can see. There is Sebastian Scholl. So it's been going on absolute eternity, 40, almost 50 minutes of this race with that single pit stop, and they're going to be absolutely flying in now for Sebastian Scholl. Now, this may be a fast stop, it may not be. We'll have a look. We'll stay on board now with Sebastian Scholl. So there's the stop. Oh, he's got a bit too far. He's got a little bit too far. That's cost him massively. You saw Nick Vaughan-Roberts there, just goes sailing past. That's a massive, massive shame. Absolutely a massive shame there for Sebastian Scholl. He does take on what seems to be quite a bit of fuel, but that means he will be going away. Loris Amadio comes in for his for his third pit stop. So Loris Amadio, that is his pit stop done. All pit stops for him are done. He's now just got to make his way forward. Philip Hammer has now re-inherited the lead back, but he's still got two more pit stops to make, as has Manuel Lucchetta. So Manuel Lucchetta's got 2 more pit stops to make. So has Philip Hammer. So that's obviously going to drop them back down. Adam Miles, 1 more pit stop to go. We've got Nick Vaughan-Roberts, 1 more pit stop to go. 8.7 seconds is the gap between those two. Joshua Dancy comes out of... So where is he? So this is a small battle here between... as this is a battle for classes of the Pro-Am. This is the Pro-Am lead, actually. So Ivan Fabro, half a second now behind. Bear in mind, both of these drivers... actually, no, apologies. So Ivan Fabro has got 1 more pit stop to make. No, actually, let me try that again. Ivan Fabro has done all of his pit stops. Joshua Dancy has not. So while it is a battle for the lead in the Pro-Am class, it is net lead to Ivan Fabro because he has done all of his pit stops. So even if he were to let Joshua Dancy by, it wouldn't really make a difference because Dancy would then have to come into the pits for a final pit stop. Philip Hammer is now in the pits as well. Less than 10 minutes remaining here. Manuel Lucchetta now inherits the lead. Philip Hammer is now on pit exit, but Adam Miles does get by. And I'll tell you what, it's actually going to be... I thought it was going to be closer than what it was between the two. There is, you can just see Philip Hammer coming through there. The timing tower lies is telling a couple of lies there. It's not the 44 hundredths of which, or 44 thousandths of which I thought it was. It's going to be a little bit more about like 1.82 seconds, perhaps. And in fact, there we go. There's your confirmation there. 2.1 seconds is the gap between Adam Miles and Philip Hammer, although they are both on 2 pit stops. So depending on what Philip Hammer can do in these final few moments, if he can try and get that, if he can claw some of that time back, you may see a nice little battle going on there in these final stages of the race. A bit further down the order, there is Sebastian Scholl, having done now 2 of his 3 pit stops. He's got 1 more remaining. So you can see again there. Again, that's dropped down around to that P9, P10. But with that additional pit stop, it might actually potentially, having a look at the gaps here, it'd be interesting to see what these gaps do go to. But we may perhaps see Sebastian Schultz drop down. I would say maybe possibly around the P12, P13 mark. Again, for considering was running upwards of running in P4 at the start of this race, and obviously having started in P4 as well. Certainly not the race, but again, I could have my maths wrong on that. I'll have to. We'll wait and see. I'd rather simply wait and see what happens there. Lucchetta hasn't made his second pit stop, bear in mind. He still hasn't made his second pit stop. He's halfway around his lap number 34. Or sorry, apologies, lap number 35. So he's still got 2 more stops to make. But it's very much guesswork a little bit. Guesswork as to where Lucchese is actually going to come out and where some of these drivers are gonna slot out. Now, 2 seconds, you can comfortably say that's perhaps going to be what would be a minute stop. Or let's say conservatively, 50 seconds of time lost there. 50 seconds, that could potentially again drop Lucchese down perhaps into 5th, maybe 6th. It may be a little bit less than that, actually. There could certainly be, Lucchese may very well be on for a P4 again. Nick Von Roberts, again, I know he's got one pit stop to make, but again, a really, really stellar drive. Once again, from the promoted from, we had Nick Von Roberts was a Pro-Am last season, all the way back last year, and has been promoted up into Pro, as you can probably imagine, but he's certainly not making it easy for the other Pro drivers, having come in and really, really push forward. Manuel Lucchese is in the pits now for his second stop. So he stops. How long is he going to be sitting here for? He's probably going to have to take a little bit of fuel. There he goes. So 5 seconds he was stopped for. Comes to the pit lane, drops down. There we go. Into P5. Loris Armadio is a little bit further ahead. In fact, there is Loris Armadio. So, but Loris Armadio has made his 3 stops. He hasn't got to make any more, whereas Manuel Lucchese has got to make a couple more pit stops, as does Adam Miles, Philip Hammer, and Nick Vaughan Roberts. So Nick Vaughan Roberts is, we're going to see in a moment. Let's have a look at the track position between Nick Vaughan Roberts and Loris Armadio. So the gap is 7 seconds or so. Now we may just see Loris Armadio just come into shot in a few seconds. Are you going to see? There is. You can just see 7.9 seconds is that gap. Sorry, 6.4 seconds is the gap. Philip Hammer is also about 6 seconds up the road. You can actually just see there is Nick Vaughan Roberts. Both drivers having made their second pit stop. In fact, where's Adam Miles? There is Adam Miles there. So this is still a close, considering it's been, these guys have been running for an hour or so. This is a pretty close drive, you would say, after this. And again, one more, a small error in a pit stop, and it all goes. It could all completely go out of the window, and it all can change. It's so crucial to nail absolutely everything when it comes to these slightly longer races. Less than 5 minutes to go, so it's going to have to be a mad dash for what's going to be potentially happening in terms of pit stops. But yeah, one wrong pit stop, one wrong move, slightly too far ahead. That's what we saw. I believe that was Adam Miles, I think, that did overshoot his pit box ever so slightly. A little bit of that, and it's just all goes wrong. That could be very much a position gained or lost, depending on who you are. And you can tell it's close as well. The final sectors, Sector 3 on the last laps for both Miles and Hammer were 30.7 dead, 30.70 for the pair of them. Again, they're really, really very, very evenly matched when it comes to a lap here. 56 minutes into the race and having set identical Sector 3s. Very, very impressive. And in all honesty, Nick Vaughan Roberts was only about 300s, 400s down on that as well with a 30.74. So, again, just outstandingly close between all of these drivers here. That's a lot of curb there for Adam Miles. Possibly a bit too much curb, but he manages to keep it going, though, and he's actually extended the gap a little bit because of that. Well, that gap was 1.8 seconds. It's now 2.1. The gap has opened up somewhat. Loris Armadio is in the pit lane for some reason. Why is Loris Armadio in the pit lane for? 3 pit stops were mandatory here, of which you were able to do your fuel additional stop, you were able to do. So Loris Armadio, this has absolutely turned everything on its head. Is Loris Armadio having to take fuel now? I think he's had to. Well, there we go. I mean, told you, like I said, I mentioned it, didn't I? Did I not say anything can happen? And that potentially could very well have been an oversight for me. But I thought Loris Armadio, with those 3 stops that he made, I thought he had it in the bag there. But unfortunate, so there are 4 stops made by their Armadio, and only 1 more stop to go for both Miles, Hammer, and Vol Roberts. So what that does mean then is, at the moment, when it comes to potentially, to leading, I think that's Adam Miles that's got that overall lead currently. There's only 2 more minutes to go. So it's going to be a last out. In fact, there we go. Adam Miles, Philip Hammer. Where's Nick Vaughan Roberts? Is Nick Vaughan Roberts going to wait 1 more lap? He is indeed. Nick Vaughan Roberts stays out. In fact, there he is. No, he does come into the pits. So Miles, Hammer, Vaughan Roberts all come into the pit lane. Where does that put Lucetta? Is Lucetta going to have to come into the pits as well? I would imagine he would. In fact, where is he on track? No, he's going to go an additional lap. So he's going to have to come in on the next lap. This is going to be so close. Philip Hammer takes Adam Miles. There we go. But it's so close between the pair of them. It's really close between the pair of them. Oh, there we go. So there's Philip Hammer. There's going to be Lucetta up the inside. Takes Philip Hammer on the second to last lap. Although it's not going to mean all that much because unfortunately Lucetta has got to make that additional pit stop. The only thing really he can do. What's happened to Adam Miles? Adam Miles, is he having to take fuel on board as well? He's sat in the pits for what seems like ages. Unless he's perhaps forgotten to do tyres or something. I've really no idea what's happened. Oh no, he's just sat there. Sat there for what seems to be ages. Having not moved for over 45 seconds now. Away he goes finally, but that's a big shot there. So Adam Miles, that's a podium position gone, unfortunately. There is Lucetta. So currently within this race lead. And in fact, I wonder, is he not going to be able to do an additional lap? No, he is going to be close. It is going to be close. He should get the additional lap in, but that would have to mean that he will be coming into the pit lane. He has to come into the pit lane now for only having done 3 laps. But he doesn't, interestingly enough. The only thing I could maybe think that he's going to try and do is go into the pits on the final lap and simply go across the line. So the white flag has been waved. So could this very well be? Are we going to see Manuel Lucetta going across the line in the pit lane? But what that would potentially mean is Lucetta would then drop. Lucetta would lose the position to Hammer, but maybe not to Vaughan Roberts. Oh, this is really interesting. This is really... Kids, I simply have no idea at this point, in all honesty. There is a bit of a battle going on here for Sebastian Schulz, Joachim Osbeck and Nicholas Sato. This is the battle for P10. It's the battle for P10 overall, but is the battle. So you've got the 2 pro drivers, Schulz and Osbeck, and then Tasato just sort of sitting there in the wings, just waiting for something to happen between these guys. Whether we're going to see that or not, again, is a different story. It's certainly going to be close. A couple of tenths, let's say a couple of tenths separating. So the timer has ticked over. 40 laps have gone. Where is Manuel Lucetta? He's just coming down into the final couple of corners. Philip Hammer, 1.3 seconds back. And Lucetta doesn't pit. Lucetta's only made 2 pit stops, so we will take the win. So Manuel Lucetta takes the win for round number 2, although he hasn't made 3 pit stops. He's only made 2. So that has cost him, potentially cost him the race. Let's look at the pit stops. Yeah, we go. Yeah, Manuel Lucetta takes. He's only done 2 pit stops. Hammer's done 3. Vaughan Roberts has done 3. Kevin Budgeon's done 3. Armadio, unfortunately, had to do a 4th. Very unfortunate there for drivers. But yeah, Lucetta, I believe. Yeah, we'll have to have done. You have to do 3 pit stops. Interesting. We'll have to see what the stewards say about that. Meanwhile, we have got, I said, still a little bit of battling going on. Is this going to be any move? There potentially might be a lunge here, possibly from Roger Hooker. Is he going to make it on Daniele Forgerini? It's going to be a lunge down into the final corner. Nothing there at the moment. Can he get the drive? No, he can't. So Forgerini finishes 12th and Hooker in 13th. A couple more drivers to go. And then we're going to be getting you the official results. The provisional results, I should say, for round number 2. Yeah, well, that certainly made things interesting for the championship there and for the series. Interesting stuff. Let's say a couple more drivers yet to finish, and then we're going to be getting you the results. We are going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in a few moments' time to bring you the results and the post-race for the Skip Barber World Cup round number 2 here at Charlotte Roval. Stick around.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in endorsed series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the post-race for the Skip Barber World Cup, season number 2, round 2 here at Charlotte Roval. Here are your finishing results. So we do have, taken across the line in first place, provisionally first, having only done 2 pit stops, however, was Manuel Lucchetta. Philip Hammer takes second, Nick Vaughan Roberts in P3, Kevin Budgeon takes 4th, Loris Armadio in P5, with Ivan Fabro in 6th. Joshua Dante takes 7th, Christopher Miles takes P8, with Adam Miles in 9th. Sebastian Schulz rounds out the top 10 with Nicola Tossato in 11th, Daniela Forgerini in 12th, Roger Hooker takes P13 with Thorsten Seifert in 14th. P15 is Daniel Cabareri, Ephraim Pizzati in 16th, Giuseppe Tellini takes 17th with Joachim Osbeck in P18. And then we have, finishing a couple of laps down, Chaz Webber takes 19th, Filipino Bernardi with a couple of incidents in 20th, and then Gigi Maloney takes P21. That does number 22. Very, very interesting developments, especially towards the end of that race. And I knew it was going to be interesting, but I didn't know how interesting it's going to be. This will be decided, obviously, in the post-race. We'll see what the stewards, once the stewards and the organising bodies, and they all review, they'll be able to then decide what happens there. But the rules were very, very clear before everyone got out, is must pit 3 times. And as we saw there were only 2 pit stops made by Manuel Lucchetta, the only person to have only done 2 stops. Now that is going to be interesting, depending on where that then puts Lucchetta. Unless there is an error on the timing tower itself, unless there's been an error that's come through with the information that we've been given, I can't imagine that Lucchetta is going to be keeping that position, unfortunately. But again, we'll have to see. We simply don't know. I don't want to speculate anything. I would simply rather, again, we'll see what happens, and we'll be able to then report back next week, of which there is, rather than having a 2-week break this time around, there is only a week break before we are back out on circuit. And it's going to be, again, once again, a very, very interesting race. I'm certainly very much looking forward to it. We're going to wait another couple of moments before we wrap up to see if anyone would like to come in for an interview. And then we will be moving forward. Speaking of that, while we are waiting to see if some of the drivers will be coming through, next race is Road America. Now, Road America is a circuit I absolutely adore. It's one of my favourite circuits. It's a very, very big circuit for a car of this size, admittedly, but it's certainly going to be an interesting one because it's simply just a slipstream circuit. Now, timing is everything here. Timing is absolutely everything. We're going to be going with, apologies actually, this was actually Format 2. I thought this was Format 3. This is Format 2. The next race is Format 3 on the 24th of April, so this time, next Sunday, this is going to be Format 3. Now, Format 3 is qualifying with 3 short sprint races, with the top 10 being reversed every single time. That's going to be the next race. At Road America, a short race like that, with cars like this, that's going to be insanely exciting. And I'm very much looking forward to that. Now, we do have a couple of drivers here that we're going to be bringing into the interview booth. One of the drivers I would like to have a quick chat with is Nick Vaughan Roberts. So, Nick, we apologies, Nick won't be able to hear me for the.
Hello?
Let's just change that over. And in fact, there we go. There, Nick.
Hello,
obviously,
yes.
hopefully
Hello.
you can. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes.
Just want to say congratulations first off, P3. Now, I wouldn't. This may change. Again, we don't want to say that yet. We may have been fed perhaps wrong information, but on our screens it looked as if Manuel Lucetta has only made 2 pit stops.
Right, okay, yeah, because I'm having a look at his lap times to see where that, see whether he has stopped 3, but I can't really work it out, to be honest, and I thought that would have been his correct position for the pace he was going, that he would have been there with 3 stops, but I can't keep up now. But I know it's 3 stops, and one of those you could take fuel, so that's the 3.
Yes, again, like I said, mini speculation. Obviously, that may not be the case. So provisionally, a P3.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
I mean, again, the race with you, obviously 60 minutes. First time we've done this format this particular season. How did it go overall? It seemed to go pretty well.
Yeah, it was all I was sort of calculating before the race when to stop, and as soon as you come to traffic, really you want to try and get a clear track as much as possible. So it was a matter of I went in early because I didn't have a good quali, and then from there it was a matter of I was working obviously with Roger, so it was just a matter of when we came up to traffic, we would stop, and it didn't actually happen. Only happened once really. So we got a good run of clear track for most of the race, which is quite handy.
Absolutely. And then going forward, I mean, Road America, completely different format this time.
Yeah.
You got 3 short sprint races. Again, I mean, that must change up. Does that change up tactics? Obviously, it must do. I can imagine it's just positions gained as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's going to be carnage probably. Everyone's going to be fighting for those positions. Yeah. I don't know if it's reverse grids or not. I'm not sure.
It's top 10 reverse.
After the first race, okay.
Yes. So
right.
There we go.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. 3 of them as well. Right.
It certainly will be. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. And that's happening next week. Perfect stuff. Well, Nick, again, we're going to be having a chat with a couple more drivers, but really, really good to catch up. Well done again on provisionally P3, perhaps P2. We'll see. And we'll catch up with you next week.
Yeah, great. Cheers. Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers again. Bye.
There we go. That was Nick Vaughan Roberts. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to bring in, and who I'd like to bring in, we're going to bring in Kevin Budgeon very, very quickly. Kevin, hopefully you can hear me.
Yep.
First off, I mean, P4, very, very good result overall. How did the race go for you?
Yeah, that's a result for me, a fourth. I'm well chuffed with that. You know what I mean? Show all these big egos in there that the Budgemeister's coming.
How did it in terms of the race itself? What were the tactics going? Did you have a specific tactics on the pit stops or anything like that?
No, I set up this overlay, and I was hoping it was going to tell me like what fuel I needed, but I set it to litres and I had the game in gallons, so I didn't really know where I was with it. So when I pitted, I put in 2.1, whereas everyone else I think probably put in 1.2 or something. So that probably cost me, I don't know, 10 seconds maybe.
Right.
But
gotcha.
no, the strategy was at the start, it seemed like there was a bit of a concertina effect with too many cars in that pack. So when I see Nick and Roger pit, I thought I'm going to pit the next lap and hopefully try and like get on the back of them too. And then I thought the 3 of us might be able to work together a little bit, and that's sort of what we've done. But I just messed up my fuel strategy at the end, and I think that's why Nick got away. We was doing very similar lap times, I think, on the last stint.
Well, it did look very very close, and in terms of lap times, again, obviously Road America, next time out, obviously with a different format. So hopefully we're going to see you battling with Nick Vaughan Roberts, again, because it was again very very good performance from yourself this race, and certainly looking forward to it to next week as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's nice to do something a bit different.
Absolutely, very much is. Kevin, thank you very, very much. Well done again on P4, and we'll catch up hopefully next week.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. Catch you later.
Kevin. Cheers. So, a couple more drivers to go for these interviews, and then we'll be wrapping them up. We're going to bring in now both Chris Miles and Adam Miles. Gentlemen, actually, I just want to say first off, is there a relation in terms of last name? Because obviously, same last name.
Brothers.
Brothers, right. Perfect stuff. So, well, I mean, in terms of, a position P8 and then P9, I mean, a very, very strong performance. Chris, we'll start with yourself, actually. We started last. We made up into P8. 12 positions. That's a hell of a drive. Really, really good. And like I said, made up positions. It was pretty consistent there. It was almost, like I said, we'd slowly go, but every time we came back to you, it would just go up a little bit, more. I just saw you creeping up the order. What was that like for you? Did it seem to be quite a steady race as you were going forward?
Yeah, I mean, certainly no dramas for me. Certainly after the two off tracks on my quali starting last or second last, I just got my 2 pit stops out the way quite early, and sort of just racing my own race, to be honest. So I didn't really know where I was. I worried a little bit after I think I got lapped by Seb and thought, I must be quite far back here, but yeah, generally happy. I think it's an incident-free race as well, so not often I get one of those. So I was happy, yeah.
Perfect stuff. And Adam, same question to you. In terms of the race, obviously, we had a strong start. Obviously, didn't we, towards the end as well. Actually, one thing I do want to ask: what happened at the final stop? Was there a penalty at all?
There was. It came in 2 seconds clear of Philip Hammer, who obviously ended up only a second off the lead. So came in and just got a speeding penalty entering my final stop, which cost me probably 40 plus seconds. So, I mean, looking at where I was and where Philip ended up, and obviously Manu didn't do one of his stops properly. So I'm looking at this thinking I would have been at least a second up the road from Philip. So that was the win thrown away, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, so I mean, what that does, it does obviously highlight again the pace that both of you guys have. Is there in terms of like working together? Do you test together? Do you work together, or is it do you test separately in terms of time schedules? How does that normally work between the two of you?
I mean, sometimes we don't probably lap together. There's a little bit of a speed differential, but if we find ourselves on the track at the same time, we can work together. And there've been races in our sort of Monday night league where certainly in qualifying we can swap positions on qualifying laps and get right towards the front. But I think just starting at opposite ends of the grid today meant none of that was gonna be possible.
No, very, very true. No, very, very true. But I mean, again, obviously a shame there, Adam, from your perspective. But again, it does show very, very good pace, and and Chris and working the way up through the field, having gained 12 positions, the biggest gainer by a country mile. That was again very, very good stuff. So really, really good to speak with you both, and I'm looking forward to hopefully being able to catch up with you again in similar or better circumstances next week.
Yep, thank you very much.
Take care, guys. Well, that is the end of the broadcast. It's the end of round number 2. Thank you again to everyone for watching. It's been absolutely fantastic having you on board, and it's been really, really good. Again, an absolutely fantastic race, and something I am very, very much looking forward to picking up again as we move forward. Make sure you tune in next week for the Road America stint. It's going to be a fantastic race. I am absolutely sure of it. Please make sure, if you haven't already, do hit the subscribe button. Again, we're really, really working forward to making sure that we can continue to grow, continue to develop as a team. And so any help and support would be greatly appreciated. But we are going to have to wrap up. Thank you again for watching. We'll see you next week for round number 3 of the Skip Barber World Cup. For round number 3 at Road America. A slightly different format. Qualifying followed by 3 sprint races. So almost a polar opposite to the race we had today. It's going to be good fun. Make sure you tune in for that next week. But as always, take care, stay safe.